Hello and welcome to the Finding North podcast. My name is Florian Diem.
And I am Fahim Salim.
Join our Sunday conversations where we discuss breaking news of the week around big tech and share our thoughts around all things business, careers, and how to find your true north in life. In today's episode, we are covering one of last week's major big tech news stories around Zoom's privacy and security flaws and discuss learnings for product management and why quick decision making and execution are more important than doing everything right from the outset. We will also go into a bit of a mix-up around why most lottery winners end up losing most of their money. We discuss some misconceptions of personal goal setting and why using smaller units of measuring progress of achieving your goals is the way to go, and why it is important to build a solid foundation, not just in product management, but also in life across all aspects of your life, not just your career, in order to be happy and successful. Enjoy.
So, Florian, episode 2.
Episode 2. How was your week?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. We're still obviously in the whole quarantine and lockdown situation here in the UK. Funny thing is, if you know about UK weather, it's infamous weather. During lockdown has probably been the best weather for a long time.
For a very long time, yeah.
Yeah.
And people rushing out to the parks, and the police have to go and tell them to go home, even if they're sitting 3-4 meters away from each other. Yeah, the news have been quite interesting this week.
Yeah. I think it's funny how different law enforcement organizations just been enforcing the grey rules. You know, I heard where a police officer was checking people's trolleys, groceries, to make sure that were they essential or not.
So they're not gonna start like hoarding toilet paper like a couple of weeks ago, and like pasta and flour and.
Well, no. They're checking whether they're buying essential stuff. So if they're buying non-essential stuff, that means they're out and about without reason. I think there was another one where people were told they can't play in their garden. I think it was the front garden. So yeah, no, it's interesting times. It's interesting times, but I think we're here. It's going to be another good 3 months, I would say. It's not going to be over that soon.
Yeah, I feel like everyone who I talk with has sort of like a slightly different number when it comes to how long it's gonna take. And you know, I've been trying to keep very positive, and I said like a couple of weeks, but I think by now I'm with you on it's probably gonna be a couple of months, not weeks. But there's few people I've spoken with, and they still no, we're gonna be good in May. We're gonna go back to like office. I'm like, doesn't look like that. Doesn't look like that at the moment.
It is funny how everyone does become an expert, right? In these situations.
Yeah, it's like you probably just keep telling yourself that you're telling yourself it's just going to be a couple of weeks in order to keep going, right? Because if you actually would accept this might be a couple of months, that we in the situation until whatnot like August, September. I mean, there's going to be a whole different situation of us now using this time to record a podcast and trying to find some positives in it, because we probably still believe it's going to be a couple of weeks. But if we're really going to be on lockdown for a few months at home, I think that's the impact that's going to have on people's mental health and society as a whole is going to be very interesting to see.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm definitely strapping in. Long term, I'm thinking this will become the new norm. 6 months, and when you think about the worst case scenario, if you get anything better, then it's a bonus, right? So just sometimes maybe it doesn't work for all circumstances. It's not a good way of thinking about the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
But just I have this saying where I say, look, just make peace with it. You know, make peace with it. 6 months. If it's earlier, it's a bonus, right?
It's great. Yeah,
so
exactly.
then you, with making peace with it, then you revolve your life around that.
You can move on, right? If you make peace with it, you can move on, and then if you reach that quicker or whatever, then as you said, then it's just an additional bonus. So I gotta say, my week was a bit of like the stock market this week, quite a roller coaster. It started off on Sunday. We discussed in the last episode that, there's a bit of like, there always comes a bit of fear with this whole, putting yourself out there and promoting. I gotta say, like on Sunday evening, when we did the last edits and then we went to bed and then we woke up next day and we said, okay, today we're gonna promote it. Like on Sunday evening, my brain was, working over hours on like the whole idea of sharing. And then, it's funny to see, because then we actually decided to go for it, right? And I'm very happy that we did, because obviously we have not reached like yet maybe thousands of people, but even just a few who reached out to me, like and said like, hey, well done, and like really enjoyed listening to it. And I really got like something out of the point you made around XYZ. Even just that one thing really made it worth it for me. And you see that sometimes you just overthink and you have that fear at the beginning, and then you go for it, and then again in retrospective you see that there was actually no real point to do all this overthinking. And
that's good.
And then even bigger news, I mean, that's just completely personal, but that's part of the roller coaster, is like I actually stopped smoking on Tuesday. So
all right,
I'm on day 6 of no smoking in all of this situation.
No smoking in this lockdown, yeah.
No smoking in this lockdown, with all the other things going on. Me and my best friend actually from back home, he's in the same. We still start challenging each other to do it, and now we're both in it, and it feels good. I went a bit mad 2 days ago, but now I sort of feel I've climbed past the.
You've climbed the past, yeah.
But yeah, so it's been an interesting week in that regard.
Interesting. You know what's funny, Flo? I think I knew you smoked when we were working together and whatnot, but you always had it under the radar. I think, I don't know. Maybe I wasn't. I didn't smoke. Smoking crew. I don't know.
I didn't smoke when I started working for Cognified.
Oh,
I quit
after
before.
I left.
No, I quit before in 2014, and then I didn't smoke for like over 2.5 years, and then I started smoking again. So this is like my official second attempt to really.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, good on you, man. Good on you.
For the first 2 years, knowing each other, I actually didn't smoke. But it's that time again, since then it's been constantly on my mind, and it's like one of those things where you generally you think maybe you're quite a strong character and you're like in control of your life, and then there's this one thing, and it's so hard. But anyway, enough of that. So so to this week's main topic or main story that we said we want to cover, quite nicely segues from the roller coaster story of mine into it is Zoom communications, right? And the stock and all the breaking stories this week around their privacy and security issues that they're now facing, that the New York Attorney General is now looking into it. Some research came out of I think University of Toronto, saying that people could really easily get access to it. The whole topic around Zoom bombing, of where really bad people trying to get into kids' school virtual rooms and then show inappropriate content, and all of this in the time where and we don't want to badmouth Zoom as such. We're actually using it at the moment to record this, but yeah, it's in times where everyone starts using it more and more in order to stay connected, and then you have this story. I think it's an interesting topic to cover and dig a bit deeper into, like the problems of maybe scaling too fast, wanting too much, not covering the basics and so on. So before, let's get into it. So just what's your take on this whole story? What do you make?
Yeah, no, I think it's they've definitely been in the news, and sometimes this helps your company and maybe sometimes it doesn't. And so for me, we're using it. We're a big user of it at home to connect with family and friends. It's easy to use. So one thing for sure that you and I know is that user experience, or UX, as the term is, sells. It is so easy to install, so easy to connect.
One click.
And prior this, the whole video conferencing communication, you wouldn't have thought that there is space. There is such a crowded market. The big players have already bought out the other players, the smaller players, and you'd have thought that the last thing you would do is start up a new video conferencing thing.
Yeah,
right?
It's like starting a new social media platform, right? Which is considered like no one's gonna fund you anymore at this time, because like Facebook and so on, they're way too dominant in order to get. But sorry, look, go on.
No, exactly. Or building a new car. We can name other industry, Teslas of the world as well. I personally think, I would love to hear your views on this, is that they've been given a lot of hard stick, a little bit unnecessary. I know some well-known security researchers are probably dug deep into the code and whatnot, but the main issue that I see is that folks that did get what's the term,
Zoom bombing,
right? It's they didn't protect the meeting with a password. They shared their links on public forums. They didn't lock the meeting, and there's lots of security settings. You and I know that the most important barrier for any security 101 is password protecting and using a strong password and not sharing that. Yes, the meeting IDs are auto-generated with numbers and you can guess them, but if it's not password locked, then it's a public meeting. So I feel they've been given a little bit of a hard stick with maybe user error, but I'm glad that their CEO didn't come out and say, oh, it's because of the users, they don't know how to use it. So I think he's done the right thing and just took it all on the chin, saying yes, it's our fault and we're going to try and fix it. And I think even I downloaded the latest version where they do make the security options a little bit more prominent in the UX. So
I did the same earlier.
What are your thoughts?
I think I completely agree with your last point, that he really went out there and took accountability, at least what you can read in the news, right? I'm not too sure if I would agree that like some of the the news stories is too hard on them, because when you actually go back last year, right? So they went public beginning of last year, and then but they've been around for a long time. This guy, I think, started like 10 years ago or something like this, right? After working for WebEx initially, and then he moved on and started this. So for a very long time, before they actually went public, they've been doing their thing, and there was no real scandals or anything like that. And then last year they went public, and you can actually, if you go back to the news, already in August last year, the first news stories came out around like some of the privacy and security issues that Zoom already had last year, right? And then there was also some people saying that whenever they have like increased server load, they actually send some traffic to China, apparently, which is also very controversial at this point in time. I'm not saying that they're doing anything bad with it or giving any sort of like access to government officials or whatever, but like you need to be careful with this, right? And then like after they went public, right, and they're share price. It's been everyone's, IPO darling of 2019, from like going, I think starting at $60 a share. And now I don't know where it was at the end of last week. I think 127. So
like
it had quite a ride. And I just somehow feel that they've now been on this growth mindset, as a lot of those companies are, right, where it's all about like we need to grow users as quickly as possible, right? And what you then do, I guess, and a lot of the time the focus then goes in like maybe making the UX a bit better, and doing more marketing and all that sort of stuff. And because you have this on top of your mind, you forgot to cover some of the basics, which is in a communication tool, privacy and security settings, are sort of very fundamental. And I just sometimes, and I don't really want to point fingers, but I think this is sometimes and we sort of labeled it the dilemma of scaling, right? And the dilemma of like growth, when you have like limited resources, and you're on this like growth mindset and like scaling mindset, that you will focus a lot of your effort on actually building out, building things that help you grow rather than making your foundation stronger, And I think now with obviously a lot of people, because of this crisis, using the platform more, maybe they then got more exposed to sort of the risk of actually facing some issues there, and people actually looking under looking underneath and see what's actually there, because now everyone is talking about it. So yeah, that's sort of my take on that.
So I think, and I hear you, definitely know what you're saying. I think they were not expecting this level of growth. They didn't plan for this, right? This was like, okay, we're tinkering away with our little startup, going after, the small businesses, and all of a sudden, not that they were even promoting like, hey, this is what you should use during a pandemic, right? I think I'm still quite impressed by, I think I read somewhere they went from 10 million users to 200 million users, something crazy like that. And it's still standing. Like that in itself is some engineering brilliance there. I know they're probably using auto scaling, elastic, servers and whatnot. But I am sure if you were to look at everything that's in the market now, there are probably more secure apps to do with video conferencing and whatnot. But they don't have the same limelight now. I think in business, whenever you're starting a company or a product such as this, you're right. You've got limited resources. You're going to decide where to deploy them, right? And I don't know, I'm thinking there are some fundamental baseline areas like security and whatnot. But that in itself, you can still spend another 10 years making it bulletproof, right? So I think there are some choices that they made, saying, okay, well, it's good enough, let's just put it out there. And I would say the way the security flaws have been exposed now through this massive scale, I'm not sure whether they were fully knew that there were big holes or not, or maybe they were thinking, look, we'll address this at the right time. And now obviously from what I heard, they've stopped all product enhancements and they're just focusing on security on the basics, for now. So it's a hard one, because if you're a business owner and you're a startup and you've done IPO and now investors are looking for their return, and you know how it is, right? It's all about revenue now. Sometimes even if you're losing money, as long as you're growing your subscriber base or bringing some revenue, even if at a loss, that's what seems to be that's what the market is rewarding in a weird way.
So you've been in the business of building like digital products and platforms and whatnot for quite a long time, right? Both on on advising clients how to do it, but then also being, working for a company where we're responsible for building those digital products. So from your experience, what would be sort of, your approach at making sure that you both cover, the sexy stuff, let's call it that way, the customer facing stuff, versus some of the more, the things behind the scenes, the infrastructure, the things that keeps things going. How do you make sure those things are, sufficiently prioritized and become part of what builds at the end of the day the overall product?
It's a good question, and obviously this is at a high level perspective. Wherever I've been, you're totally right. The business always wants to direct all of their budget towards the new features, more the sexy stuff, it's becoming a norm now. But I know that I've had to fight hard to keep a third of budget, resource, and whatnot into, like the hot fixes, the security, the foundational, making sure the upkeep of the environment is important. Because if you don't do that, over time you tend to spend more, and you have to, like, I don't know, re-platform and whatnot. So I think that there is a good balance, spending, say, and just a number, it could be different in different industries, right? But a third of your budget has to go into the upkeep of whatever it is you need to do. That is quite a hard sell sometimes, but I totally understand. I also have this philosophy of addressing things when they need to be addressed. Sometimes you may address things way too early without the benefit. So that balance is a hard one. As we know, even many of the well-established companies out there with their products, in the big corporations, they've got bug hunting, bounty programs, where actually the best way to really reveal the flaws or some of these security issues is seeing what the public find. But the biggest strength you need to have is how quickly you can act upon it, So in this world, and I always say this, the biggest superpower any organization could have in this day and age is the agility, how fast they can pivot or move to a particular thing. We live in a world now where you cannot predict what the next few years are gonna bring to you. So the only muscle of superpower, if you can practice it and have, is the ability to move at speed. If you can move at speed, I think then you'll be able to weather a number of storms. So
I think it's the agility of decision making and then execution, right? And both needs to be in place, because, like, you might be able to maybe quickly turn around like a product from an execution point of view, but the decision to arrive at the point where you actually say, like, okay, which way are we going, might take quite long, because of like decision by committee instead of like, just quickly empowering people to do something. So it's again, it's like the operational side, the people side of things, where people need to be able to quickly make decisions based on, as you said, they might not have done this on purpose to leave those doors open to those hackers. It's just something like, I think we have this covered for where we are with our product at this point in time. And then now they need to address it because, there's maybe increased traffic and usage of the tool. And now it's all about like making a decision very quickly and then executing against it very quickly, right? If not both of those things are in place, it becomes tricky. So
do you think, though, let me ask you, do you think this dilemma that Zoom have got themselves into do you think it's is a positive thing or a negative thing? How do you think it'll pan out?
It's a very good question, and I've thinking a bit about it. Like, is Zoom a buy or sell? At the end of the day, it's a publicly traded company, right? That's the ultimate question. And I think it's overvalued. significantly. If you think about it, the market cap is at the moment, at the height, it was bigger than, I think I heard on a different podcast the other day, like it was valued more than the entire US auto industry. Zoom alone is like one stock, and you think like
auto and the hotel industry, I think,
something like this, right? And you think like, okay, it's a communications tool that doesn't even have its privacy under control, and it's worth more than GM and Ford and those people who have like patents and plants and like cars and all. But I know it's a new world. If you look at the market caps of companies, the biggest companies from like 10 years ago or 20 years ago to where it is right now, there's this move towards tech, and tech companies usually have a higher multiplier to it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I think the interesting thing that we will see over the next couple of months, similar with Slack, right, is how much the big players, specifically Microsoft, can actually now benefit of this crisis, let's say, that Zoom is going through, by actually doubling down on their privacy and enterprise solution story, right? Because where maybe like in the past, a couple of those CIOs, CTOs, whoever is responsible for, purchasing this new software, Zoom, for example, because they're not going to make money by the people like you and me now using it for this meeting, right? The money comes in for probably in an enterprise level. And if now the sales representative from Microsoft can just play the whole Microsoft now, in the 90s, that might have been a little bit different, but like now the whole privacy, enterprise solution, scalable solution, secure solution versus the Zoom story, they might struggle. So at the moment, I'm sort of undecided yet if it's a buy or sell. I would probably still a buy if it takes a bit of if it takes another hit, and it goes back to like, I don't know, $100 a share or so, I think it's a buy. And obviously I'm not an investment advisor.
Do we need to put like a little thing saying we do not we are not financial advisors?
We probably
your stock may go up or down.
You might lose money in the process. No, it's for me, it's just to think about it, right? And I think they benefit a lot now from the PR, obviously, and it's installed on a lot of more people's machines, and it is, as you said, the UX is fantastic. In the past, it was always about the memes and the people making fun of the conference tools. It's like, hello, can you hear me? Hello? And it works quite well for us. I mean, we recorded the last episode last week on the first try, and we didn't have really any issues with the video or the audio, or anyone Zoom bombing us. So yeah, I think it's still a buy, but it's going to be interesting to see how they will be able to compete with the actual enterprise solutions out there.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I think they're either gonna own the space going forward, or if something else happens, like another crisis or another flaw somewhere, people are going to start maybe saying, okay, we gave you one chance, but now it's a bit silly. So I know of a couple of friends who are a little bit of sensitive when it comes to, let's say, privacy and things like that. They've uninstalled it, right?
Yeah.
But they're the ones that actually read the whole GDPR statements on websites and cookies, right? So that's a whole of that segment.
Those three people out there.
Yeah. So in a weird way, Zoom has become the verb, right? So they are owning the word, just like Google. Let's Google it. Let's Zoom it, right? It's definitely it's on top of people's minds, and once you own that word, and that word is now associated with a particular activity, you've basically dominated the market.
Yeah.
So, in of course, you need to sort out your other fundamentals, but it's very rare for a company. I think it's been a long time now where companies own a word, right? And I think Zoom has got, if not already, has got the opportunity to own that word.
I think it's the same with Slack, to be honest. You know, it's like, yeah, let's just Slack, or just send me a Slack. You know, it's not even, you're not even talking about message anymore. It's like, send me a Slack, or let's Slack. And yeah, same with Zoom. So I think it's a good point. You're not gonna say like, yeah, just like Microsoft Teams me, or let's just Hangouts. Like, not really. Like, at least
doesn't
I
have
haven't.
the same flow.
Yeah, cool.
But do you think, so one thing before we move on, do you think though that if the share comes down to a certain price, shouldn't the other enterprises be thinking about just buying them out? You know?
Yeah, I think that is a good scenario, and I'll try to find the article that I was reading about it. Someone covering like the likely buyers of Zoom and Slack if the share price, you know, goes below a certain point. And a lot of people actually were referencing Amazon to be a likely buyer of them, because they have this. I don't think is it for AWS or for their marketplace backend system, like a messaging system that people just hate. You know, you can go on Google right now and like just Google it. It's supposedly it's awful, and they're not really dominating this space yet, right? And they're so big and they're so cash rich, they could easily buy them out. I don't know, maybe. You know, Apple has the capital, but you know, Apple already has like FaceTime, and I think.
So I think I was thinking Apple, because they've got FaceTime, so they obviously have a set of products that want to, but FaceTime I feel never materialized the promise. You know, like it's that closed ecosystem, and it's got it's so integrated that it's weird when somebody calls you. 5 of your different devices, you know, start ringing. So I think FaceTime, I don't know, it never dominated the place like everyone maybe thought about. So maybe this may be an opportunity for them.
Well, one of the reasons is because they miss out on 50% of the market, right? Because you can only do it if you have an Apple device, and like in the phone, that's, I think it is still 50-50 pretty much, right, in between Android and iOS. And then also like if you have it on your Mac, you can use it, but you can then not use it with the Microsoft you know. So hence this is already like, I think there's very little organizations out there, if you bring it back to the enterprise market, that are just like, you know, Microsoft users or Windows users or Apple iOS users. So that in itself is sort of limiting their ability to scale. So that might be, if they say, okay, there's a big opportunity in there for us, then they need to probably purchase something like that. I just feel that it sort of goes a bit against the whole closed ecosystem approach of Apple. So I think Amazon is interesting. Microsoft, you know, is right up there as well, but they have teams now which they're pushing heavily, and I think they're sort of natively developing rather than trying to, you know, buy a solution and then integrate it in their suite of products. I mean, Google could own this place, right? With like Google Suite and like Google Sheets and whatnot, right? And Hangouts, I've been using Hangouts quite a bit with my friends back home, and it's pretty stable, and I like the video quality and so on. But you need a Gmail account in order to use it, right? So if one of your friends of the 10 you want to talk with doesn't have one, they can't they can't join. At least we had the problem. So yeah, I mean. It's definitely something to watch out for over the next couple of...
I think maybe just one last point on this. I think if anyone's buying Zoom, they're more or less buying the 200 million users.
Yeah.
The captive audience, right? They may scrap the technology and, you know, integrate it, but I think that the value is in the brand now, if it becomes the verb. And the users itself, you know. So yeah,
cool. So we, as part of this show, we always want to sort of tie the topic in between like the three main areas, right? Like tech, business, and also life. So I sort of gonna try to segue away from the Zoom story, but keep the topic of like scaling. And we then said like maybe wanting too much too quickly, and move this into like a discussion around like life, and where, at least for myself, I can just see the connections here with like when sometimes in life, you just want too much too quickly, and then you sort of fail because you've not been in it enough for the long term. So the whole notion of like, slow and steady wins the race. And I remember when we started working to each other, you always said like, think big, start small, and all this sort of thing. So go take it away. What's your
okay, so this is really unscripted. Couple of things come to mind, and these are just random weird facts, and maybe it'll spark some discussion, right? So I can't remember where I read this, but I'll bet on it being more or less true, that most of the lottery winners, right, after a certain period of time, have lost all their money that they won. Okay, so coming back to the notion of getting something too quickly and not knowing what to do with it, lottery winners are a prime example of that, right? So most lottery winners, after a number of years, they if you go back and revisit them, they are back to where they were they were before winning the lottery.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that in itself is an interesting one. I don't know.
For sure. So when you said earlier this thing about 30%, it's sometimes hard to do it, but you need to sort of keep investing 30% in sort of like the basics, right? And like building the foundation and so on. And then I thought a bit about it, and I think if this becomes
through wealth, right? Wealth generation is similar.
Yeah, and it becomes specifically true also in the way you invest your time in different things, right? So sure. I feel like when you, especially from a careers point of view, if you only invest your time into like, wanting more and like, earning more money and getting up and getting promoted, while not making sure you also invest some time in just like learning and building that constant foundation, you might struggle. And I think a lot of the people who actually might get out of uni and then start sort of don't see that, right? That initially it's, you want to, you want to make some money and you want to make a career, but it's equally important to dedicate a certain amount of time and headspace to just like learning over the earning aspect, right? So that you always have this balance in between those two things. That's just what came to me earlier. And reaching that point where you convince in that particular case yourself that it's worthwhile investing those 30%, even though you might not see an immediate short-term positive return on it, you will see it long-term. And there's also then a lesser chance that you might look back in 10 years at like, yeah, cool, I've now jumped, but now I've sort of reached the ceiling because I've never really built that foundation, and all of this has been built on this wobbly thing, and then it just falls so apart.
This is just to build on that, Flo, very interesting topic on this. So I've always thought, and you tend to come up with these things, or you're more attracted to these things once you do more reflections on maybe one pillar of your life you may have succeeded, and you look around. So I think life, if you look at life, there are a number of pillars that make life enjoyable or being content. So one is around your health, that aspect of it is relationships, spirituality, career, personal development, and I don't know, maybe there's one or two other pillars of life, right? And I think you need to invest the right amount or proportion of time
Mm.
into those areas, right? So, there is no point just going after one or two aspects of your life, and let's just say you leave your health behind, because you
Mm.
know what, you don't want to be a very successful and financially independent person, but your health has taken a back seat and you're unable to enjoy it, right? Or you've become so successful in one or two pillars of your life, but your relationships have suffered and you've got no one to enjoy it with.
Mm.
So I think you're right. Yeah, just thinking about that, life is about building, maybe it's that pyramid of the solid foundation, all aspects of life.
Yeah.
And I think I've started doing this for the past few years, is those 5 or 6 pillars of your life. Every 6 months, you assess them, and based on how you're feeling at that time, you
Mm.
score yourself out of 10. So you say,
Mm.
look, how am I feeling health wise? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to give myself X out of whatever. And then it's interesting when you look back to see how things have maybe shaped, or how you were thinking, or what you were going through at that point in your life, how that impacts the different pillars of aspects of your life.
So, but what do you do if you look back and you actually scored a 2 out of 10 for one of those areas? What does it do for you personally? Is that then, putting you in like in a negative headspace for a couple of days, and you sort of like judge yourself, or do you just say, okay, you know what, it didn't work out. I'll try to figure out why, but I'm not going to use this in order to stress myself. It's just now another data point in the process of becoming
Yeah.
it's probably the best version of yourself, right? It's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
discussed last time. And you just use as a next data point to then move on. So what?
Yeah. I think you're right. I think first you have to be convinced of the idea that being content with your life, you need to have a balance of all these pillars of your life. So sometimes when you are maybe unhappy or not content and whatnot, it's usually because there is an imbalance of those pillars, right?
Yeah.
And I think the way I treat it, maybe similar to you, is I just use it as a data point. I'm like, okay, great. Now I know what to focus on. And then you build a whole program of work around that particular data point to improve it. I think once you know what data points you need to go after, it actually gives you the motivation, because half the battle is people just lost, not knowing what to do, and they're in this destructive cycle a little bit. So I think get as much data points as you can to allow you to inform what are the next steps that you should be doing.
Yeah, and
What
I
about
think,
you?
yeah,
Does that
I think no,
resonate?
I absolutely resonates. I think there's a general I don't know, misuse of goal setting, I think sometimes, because I've seen that with myself, where actually goal setting becomes something that in after you go through the phase of your duration or your timeline that you set yourself to reach a certain goal, and then you arrive at the end of it, not reaching that goal then actually becomes a burden on yourself, right? And you, rather than to say, it's sort of like misused, because the objectives goal setting is just to give you a sort of general direction where to go,
Yeah.
right? It's not like when you don't reach it, well, then you failed. It comes down to, I think, back to this. So for me, it's like, if you set a goal, use it mainly as the direction you want to go, right? So you have something to aim at, and even if you don't get there as quickly or as easily as you thought initially, don't judge yourself. Just as we said, use it as a data point to then say, okay, maybe now for the next iteration, for the next kind of like part of that journey, I'm going to try something slightly differently to see if that's going to make any impact, right? Rather than really putting yourself down because you didn't really achieve that particular goal. I think there's a big difference there, and maybe this comes from corporate goal setting exercises, how we used to it. It's like
smart goals, right?
Yeah, it's like you either reach it or you don't, and if you don't, then you failed. I think that whole notion needs to be redefined and reconsidered, because I think for in a personal life, for me personally, that doesn't work. It's we said last time, it's part of the journey, then it's part of the process, and it's the goal is to be in the process of actually trying to achieve something, rather than just aiming for the gratification you might get of reaching that particular goal.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes you may have a very ambitious goal that may take a long time to achieve. I think another technique that all you could do is, I say this to myself, is measure the progress in millimeters rather than kilometers, right? So your so just small wins of the day, psychologically, I'm sure some chemical gets released saying I've achieved this, or you've ticked the box. So no matter how the smaller the unit of measurement progress you can create, the better it is. Then it actually becomes satisfying to achieve the next small win, And I can't remember the author's name, but there was this Army Navy captain person that says, like, look, when you wake up in the morning, do your bed. If you do your bed and that's how you start your day, that's how you become successful in life. If you do not do your bed, right, then he was saying, like, if depending on small wins, who does their bed or not consistently, you can predict, if they're going to be successful in life. So
I think this is a whole topic in itself, like, sort of like routines that you can do just in order to have those quick wins in the morning. Like I started doing this in the morning, where I have now almost like a very strict routine. Not always getting there, right? I'd say like maybe 4 or 5 days out of a week, I managed to do it. Sometimes, you're not gonna be able to wake up at 6:15. You wake up at 7 during the week, or you're not doing the workout but like, I think just as you said, like, it's doing the bed. It's like waking up at the time where you said you're gonna wake up. It's then to at least do the 20-minute exercise. It's like to drink your glass of whatever people are into, lemon or apple cider vinegar, or in the morning, in order to help with some of your health things. That can just, as you said, like, put yourself in a mindset where you're naturally gonna feel like you're winning the day, because you've already won by doing a couple of things in the morning.
Absolutely.
Cool. So I think we said, like, we definitely want to do this episode a little bit shorter than the last one, because the last one we thought we did 45 minutes, and I think we did an hour and 5 or 6 minutes. So I think I think that quote and that topic, I think it's a good point to end it, and see maybe how we can potentially use this in the next one as a topic, so we maybe naturally flow.
I think so. I think the whole goal setting, building habits, small wins of the day is probably a big topic in itself. Exactly. And I think, I know you and I have a lot of opinions on that. So why don't we maybe this particular thing will lead on to episode number 3.
See if we can find any news story of next week, small wins, maybe around Corona or something that we can tie to it. And then there will be episode 3 next Sunday. So thanks, Fahim.
Cool.
And
thank you, Flo.
And hear you guys in the next one.
Cool. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode and you're listening on YouTube, please let us know in the comments below, like the video, and don't forget to subscribe. If you're on Spotify, Apple Music, or Sounder, please leave us a review, download the episode, and share the podcast with your colleagues, friends, and family. If you have any questions you would like us to cover in the next episode, if you want to be on the show, or for anything else, please email us at findingnorthpodcast@gmail.com. That's findingnorthpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you. Have a great week all. Stay healthy. And until next time. Cheers.